présenter?
I'm Neil Plantinga, formerly Cornelius Plantinga Jr. I'm a 78-year-old man who has spent my whole life in theological higher education as a seminary professor, as a dean of the chapel, and as president of Calvin Theological Seminary, and then for the last 12 years as a senior research fellow at the Calvin Institute of Christian Worship. I'm an ordained Christian minister, and I'm interested in anything that has to do with the intersection of Christianity and human life.
Comment pouvons-nous définir le péché?
Well, there are various ways of defining sin. A simple way is anything we think, say, or do that displeases God and for which we deserve blame. But if we fill out the concept of sin, we need the concept of shalom, which is the Hebrew Bible's definition of how life ought to be. It ought to be full of justice, harmony, and delight, which human beings love God, love each other, and live responsibly. And then sin is anything that disrupts shalom, for which we are to blame. There are things that disrupt shalom that we are not to blame for. Cancer, for example. But robbery, theft, deceit, idolatry, envy, pride, those are ways of disrupting shalom for which we are to blame. So the fuller definition of sin is culpable vandalism of shalom.
Comment le péché détruit-il les relations, les institutions et la société?
Let's start with the most basic of relationships, family relationships. Families have systems, so parents are supposed to take care of children, and children are to honor their parents. That's part of shalom. But when family systems break down, parents neglect their children or abuse their children or operate in so juvenile a fashion that their children have to parent them. And the problem in a family system that's no good is that children who have been badly parented end up badly parenting their own children. So the offenses echo, they multiply, they replicate themselves. So in that way, you can see how sin will corrupt a family system. And something very similar can go on in a society in which the leaders of society are untrustworthy. When citizens don't trust their leaders, chaos results. And when leaders envy or corrupt other leaders, then you have examples in society that, if they are modeled, will corrupt the whole system. So in politics, for example, if you have narcissist or self-absorbed leaders who care really only about themselves and not about helping society in general, what happens is a great vacuum of proper leadership, and anybody or anything can get into that vacuum and corrupt the society.
En quoi le péché est-il une folie par opposition à la sagesse?
Sin is the wrong recipe for nourishment. It's the wrong fuel to drive our car, our lives. If we sin, we separate ourselves from God, who is our only final source of support, nourishment, and life. So the sinner is being foolish. If, for example, I am arrogant, people will dislike me, mistrust me, fear me, and when they do, they will not be friends or colleagues or close associates. They will preserve a distance between themselves and me. And the result is that by arrogance, I abort the possibility of real fellowship with others. So sin is foolish because it robs us of life's riches.
En quoi le péché est-il lié à l'addiction?
It's a little bit complicated, but I think I can simplify it enough. Addiction is a disordered relationship to a substance or a behavior that provides a desired change of mood. The person who drinks, for example, wants the buzz in his temples, the elevation of mood, and will seek it, even when seeking it becomes compulsive and damaging. Some sins are addictive. For example, the lustful person is very likely to become addicted to sex, and when addicted, to seek it more and more, and to seek it despite its damaging effects in his own life. There are some sins that are not particularly addictive. For example, sins that are relatively listless. If I neglect my aged parents, I am sinful, but I can't say that it changes my mood particularly. So sin and addiction are overlapping circles. They very often combine, but there are some sins that are not particularly addictive and some addictions that are not sinful. For example, if my mother addicts me to crack cocaine in her womb, I am an addict, but I am not responsible for it.
Votre livre va être publié pour la première fois en français, mais il a été écrit en anglais il y a bientôt 20 ans. Avec le recul, êtes-vous toujours en accord avec vous-même? Si vous deviez réécrire l'ouvrage, que changeriez-vous?
I think I would stand by virtually everything I wrote. But if I were to write the book over again, I would spend more time on the physical, the genetic influences on people that may affect their culpability. It may be that some children, for example, are born with a tendency in certain directions that is extremely hard for them to resist. And one of the things that I'm most eager that we understand is that none of us human beings can fully estimate the culpability of another human being for the way they behave. Maybe they are totally responsible. Maybe they are minimally responsible. Maybe their responsibility, as is extremely likely, is mixed. We don't even know in our own case how exactly culpable we are. The mix of environmental influences on us and what I would spend more time on today, genetic and physical influences on us, is very hard to estimate. But, of course, we are not judged by ourselves. We are judged by God, who does know how to read the human heart.
Comment pouvons-nous prier pour vous?
Well, I'm 78. I've lived a full life. I've had very interesting work. I'm very grateful for all this. So any prayers that join me in my gratitude for my life and my loved ones would be welcome. And there are some tendencies in older age that I battle against, as some of my friends do. Namely, how am I to think about meeting God? I know what the right answer is. The right answer is God is a God of grace, and I am one of God's children. But why am I timid? Why am I a little bit afraid of meeting God? Maybe it's righteous, I'm a God-fearing person. In other words, I understand the numinous presence of God and how God is awesome. But maybe I'm not entirely trusting Jesus's full atoning grace for my sins. I don't know, but I would appreciate prayers in that regard as well.